This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, what a show we have for you tonight. We're talking basketball, Shane. I mean, you know, it's been football, and I think we've learned over the last few weeks that basketball is likely going to bring us a lot more excitement than the football team has.
I think we've learned by now that maybe twice a decade we're fortunate enough to still be very excited about football in November.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is not one of those. So
Nope.
we have every year we have like a 1 out of 5 chance, and we took that last year. We got it last year. We didn't get it this year. But no, basketball season's heating up. Big game at Wisconsin. We don't like them. Big game against Duke. We like them even less the following week. So excited for it, and we have a fantastic guest to discuss it tonight.
We do. Ryan Hansen, the color commentator for Arizona basketball on radio with Brian Jeffries, is going to join us in the second segment. It'll be his second time on Wildcat Country. Very much looking forward to catching up with him, as he is always quite entertaining. But Shane, I want to get into standouts this week, and we have a national champion to talk about. Not a sport that I know a lot about, but you can tell us more. Triathlon.
Well, so the University of Arizona has been around for almost 140 years, and this is its 23rd national championship of all time. And I think it's one that people saw on social media on Saturday, like, oh, wow, that's cool. Because a lot of us are still getting used to the fact we have a triathlon team. They're the newest program on campus, just second season. But yeah, the women's triathlon team brought Arizona its 23rd national championship all time, and its first in 5 years. In just its second season in existence. They're the national champions. And making it even sweeter, they beat Arizona State, which was the runner-up. Arizona beat 13 other schools altogether at the national championships in Florida. So congrats to Coach Wes Johnson and the entire team on an amazing accomplishment. I'll mention every member of the team finished in the top 30 here. Kelly Wetland finished second. Bear with me. Margarita Vrablova finished third, right behind Kelly. Molly Lakustiak. Dana, it's going to get easier after this. Dana Krikrilova, I apologize. I probably butchered that last name. Ellison Wolf, Lydia Russell, and Mia Wency. See, that was a little easier after that. But congratulations to all those ladies. An amazing accomplishment, especially just 2 years into the program. And congrats to Coach Wes Johnson as well. So definitely great, amazing job representing the University of Arizona. Would also like to mention our volleyball team, which scored a big 5-set upset victory over number 8 Kansas at McHale with Matt Mielbach on the call, I believe. Mm-hmm. Jordan Wilson had 37 kills in that match, and she was named Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. And Avery Scoggins, who we mentioned several times earlier, won her 4th Big 12 Freshman of the Week honor of the season. So big congrats to the ladies on a marquee conference win and nationally as well. And then finally, Tobe Awaka. 18 points, 15 rebounds, and Arizona's demolition of Old Dominion. By the way, I think Old Dominion is the coolest name of any university out there. I know they got beat by 50-something points, but I feel like their name just kind of sounds badass. But the Arizona beat them, doubled up on them essentially. But, we've seen what Arizona's been able to do with Christian Coloco and Umar Ballo during the Tommy Lloyd era. And if Tobe Awaka can continue that big man trend of, improving when he puts on an Arizona uniform, and he contributes even half of that production the rest of the season. With everything else Arizona has, they're going to be in good shape. So congrats to Tobe on a great game, and hopefully he'll have another big game in Wisconsin shortly. That's what I got.
And that was outstanding, and we will talk to Ryan Hansen next segment, and he'll preview the Wisconsin game, and then we will make picks in the final segment, just you and me this week to do so. So let's get into Buy or Sell, presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off your first purchase. After you do that, please make sure to fill out the post-purchase survey and mention Wildcat Country. All right, Shane, number one, we're going to talk football to start. Brent Brennan should have taken a page from Mike Norvell at Florida State and made staff changes immediately.
It depends. I mean, would he be doing it for optics to placate the fan
Doesn't
base,
matter. That doesn't
or
matter.
because it does to me. I mean, are you doing it because you want to reassure the fan base and the athletic director that you're serious and you're about making changes, or do you really think it's the right thing to do? I'll sell if he doesn't think it's the right thing to do. I also think he's in a bit of a difficult position because when you're talking about staff changes, you're probably talking about Dino Babers as one of those changes. And I think the last thing he wants to do is fire someone like that, who I imagine Dino probably considered this a pit stop until he could find another head coaching gig, which probably won't come anytime soon. But if he's let go by Arizona, it definitely ain't coming anytime soon. So I think he's in a tough spot. Does he really think the team will improve if he makes these moves? Maybe it will. If he doesn't, again, I'm not one for just doing things for optics. For the same reason that I don't like the idea of hiring the big name head coaches because he's a big name. You want guys who can win, and we saw that with Kevin Sumlin, and we saw how that worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you can argue if you want to talk about who should be let go, we can have that discussion, but should he do it just for the sake of doing it? I'm going to sell.
I think I'm going to buy it because I think at this point the fan base is lost and you have to give them something. Like if you were to be in a job and the numbers stink, someone is held accountable. And nobody looks like they're being held accountable to the fan base. Now, and I'm not saying that he's necessarily in the wrong. I'm saying to the fan base, it looks like, he just says it is what it is. We're not that good. And that is where I have the problem.
I understand. I'm not so much concerned about the fan base because I feel like at this point the fan base has already checked out on football season and they're all in on basketball. But if it's to light a fire under the team, because sometimes that does work. We saw with UCF. I mean, they were going to beat Arizona anyway, but they fired some coordinators
and look what happened.
And look what happened for the Arizona game anyway. So if it's for that reason to shake things up and help and improve the team, sure. If it's just to placate the fan base, again, I don't think that's going to matter at this point one way or the other to the fan base. I think the only way you're going to get them back is by winning. And I don't know if, like we talked about last week, of just a couple wins down the stretch, including a win over ASU. Yes, that would make us feel better, but I don't think that's going to be enough. I mean, think about this team had 10 wins last year.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the head coach left, but everyone was excited about Brett Brennan bringing back all these guys. And they still have trouble selling out games, except for the Colorado game because that was the Coach Prime game.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You had all these people that bought season tickets between last season and this season, and they're all going to cancel. Now, I'm going to be there. I'm going to renew mine. And people that I know are going to renew theirs. Mike Kintner, GM of Heroes Auction, he's going to renew his because he goes every year and he has 8 tickets, 50-yard line or thereabouts. Great. But there's a lot of people that are going to cancel. And that's what I'm concerned about. What is going to keep those people? Because them not renewing their tickets, Shane, hurts the bottom line of the athletic department.
And the price increase in hindsight couldn't have come at a worse time. I mean, everything else is more expensive now anyway, but
they can't possibly raise prices at this point.
No, they're not going to do it again. No.
Well, if they do, it's flat out insane.
Yeah. But I think, we talked about, like, again, if Dave Hickey were still at Arizona, I don't think there's any chance that Brent Brennan would be one and done. I still think he'll be back next season, but I think there's at least the door is cracked open for a change now that Desiree Reed-Francois is in charge, and she may have other plans. Every ADs want to bring in their own coaches anyway, and I mean, I'm sure Tommy Lloyd's safe, but I think a lot of times ADs look for any reason to make changes, and if Arizona finishes 3-9 and lays an egg against ASU on top of that, I think it's at least possible that he could be one and done. But I just to go back to your question, if it's for the right reason, I'm for it. If it's just for optics, I don't know how many Arizona fans are even paying attention at this point.
I think it's a win this weekend would go a long way for Brent Brennan's status because you're a favorite. I know you're only a 1-point favorite, but you're a favorite, and you probably should win this football game based on paper. Now, Houston has been playing well. We'll make our picks later in the show. I don't want to spoil anything. I am really torn on this game. Yeah. I had felt throughout the week that Arizona was going to win this game. We will see when I make my pick. I'm going to say that. All right. Over under attendance that is announced. So that includes all the tickets that are sold. 40,000 on Friday night, over or under, with a basketball game going on at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say I read your wording. Announced is definitely the operative word. Yeah, I'll buy that it's going to be announced at over 40,000. I
Oh, for
will
sure.
absolutely
How many
sell
people do you think will be there? How many people do you think will be there?
30 between 30 and 32,000.
Oh,
Maybe.
I would take the under. There won't
You
be
think it's gonna be less than
there
that?
won't be 25,000 people at the stadium.
What's the lowest amount you've ever seen there? Because you've been at almost every game for.
There was a game, I think it was like 2017 or 2018. It was a late September game against Utah. I think it was also a Friday night, and it was 25,000, and it was like towards the end of the Rich Rod era.
I
And
want
it
to
was
say,
real
yeah.
bad.
I
Yeah.
want to say that they had a day game against USC a few years back when Khalil Tate had this was the year before his breakout year. It's 20, so it had to be 2016, and it was like 100 degrees outside. And I wasn't there, but I saw a picture of the stadium when it kickoff, and it looked like it was a lot less than half full. I think it was against USC. But maybe
I don't remember that one, but that Utah
okay.
game, I was really upset. I'm like, this is setting back the program because it was still early in the season.
Mm.
Now, they didn't go on. I think they made a bowl game that year or whatnot. So it must have been 2017. And they went on and made a bowl game, and Rich Rod then got dismissed and
Yeah, that was
whatnot.
2017. Yeah, that was a
Right.
good game against Purdue, but yeah,
Yeah,
they lost
but
it.
I think I don't fault people for not wanting to go. I mean, I think
No.
if I didn't have a problem and just like an addiction to watching this team play, reasonably I wouldn't go. It's going to be miserable. The fact that driving down in traffic, the game won't end till 11:45, and not getting home till after probably 2.
And you
Good
got
luck for
Arizona,
me.
Wisconsin as well going
Right.
on at the same
With a
time.
I mean, good luck for me caffeinating up to stay awake on this drive home. It
Yeah.
is going to be a nightmare. But I can't. They better freaking win this game, Shane. I'm just going to say that they better freaking win this game.
Yeah, we've said that how many weeks in a row now?
They better freaking win this game. For driving down for this crap, they better freaking win this game. I'll say that. All right. Let's talk a little basketball. Buy or sell. Tommy Lloyd can effectively play a 9 or 10 man rotation.
I'll buy that 100%. Yeah. Can he? Yes. Well, will he? Probably not. I don't think that's what he wants to do. I think it'll sort itself out these next two games, and maybe a little bit beyond that. We'll get a better idea. I think we talked about. Conrad Martinez is probably the obvious odd man out there to get it down to 9, and then we'll have to see after that. No, he's got some good problems in terms, especially on with the big men. Krivas is back. Toby Awaka came in, and then by the way, Henry Vesar is healthy and playing very well now. So I think that ultimately it's going to go down to 8. I wouldn't mind seeing him play 9 or 10. Maybe that's what he ends up doing, because this team has more depth than any other team I think he's had, which is impressive considering in his first 3 years he's had some outstanding teams. So can he? Absolutely. Will he? After these next couple of games, probably not.
I'm concerned about this one. He has 9 guys on the roster that need to play 15 plus minutes. Can they fit in it, especially in the front court? We're going to talk to Ryan about that in the next segment. I'm kind of concerned. How do you see those minutes playing out, Shane? Obviously you got Awaka, who you talked about earlier. You've got Vesar, you've got Krivas, you've got Carter Bryant. You got and Trey Townsend. Like, how do you find a way to play those guys the right amount of minutes?
Yeah, there's no obvious answer this time, is there? Other than Conrad Martinez, which I think,
I know but that's the 10th. That's the 10th guy.
Yeah, other than him, I think that gets it down to 9. But after that, I mean, it's who are you going to take out? Carter Bryant's the freshman, so maybe you limit his minutes. Anthony Del Orso, if he continues to struggle shooting, maybe you don't play him as much. But he was a star. I know it was a smaller school, but still, he was a star previously. And then you're not. You got the starting 5, Henry Vesar. Someone commented on our YouTube channel, there's no way you can, limit Vesar's minutes right now.
You can't right now. No, you can't.
The way he's playing,
Nope.
even though I suggested that last week, but then who do you limit? Krivas? I mean, maybe you end up doing that if he doesn't take a big step forward and he's still returning from injury. Obviously, Awaka looks great so far. So I don't know what the answer is. I feel like if it does go down to 8, maybe you keep those 3 big guys in the rotation and you limit either Carter Bryant or Anthony Del Orso. But I think it's going to work itself out. And it could be a situation where, if you have, God forbid, an injury, or you just got someone struggling, then Tommy can at least look to the bench and say, hey, there's actually someone else on the bench that I trust, versus in previous years when I don't think he did.
Yeah, I'm just really curious how this is going to play out. I don't know how he's going to do it but I think Vesar has been the big surprise here. I don't think
Oh, yeah.
anybody saw this.
I think a lot of people thought that Vesard played his last minutes at Arizona after his freshman year.
Yeah, and I was one of them. I'm like, this guy, he's done. He's going to transfer. Good for him for sticking around. He's been a big asset for this team thus far. All right, number 4 here. I know it's only 2 games, Shane, but whoa, this team looks really freaking good. I'm not wrong for dreaming big already in March, despite the number of losses I think they'll have in the regular season. Buy or sell?
You probably know where I'm going to go with this one.
Go ahead. Let's hear it. Okay,
I'll look, if you want to get excited, I'm not going to stop you. There's no, I mean, I'm in complete, I'll believe it when I see it mode when it comes to Arizona in the NCAA tournament, just because it's been over 20 years since we got into a Final Four. Now, almost every college student at Arizona, they weren't alive when last time Arizona got to the Final Four, which is just crazy. Because I remember watching that game at the big screen at McHale Center back in 01.
Right. Oh, wow. Did you really? That's awesome.
I did. And even if Arizona had made the Final Four recently, we both know how big a crapshoot the tournament is. There's a difference between being one of the 4 best teams in the country and making the Final Four. In most years, there's at least sometimes there's some overlap, but not a lot. But yeah, through 2 games against inferior competition, yeah, this team looks like the part of being a top 10 team and one that could finish toward the top and maybe contend for the Big 12 championship. I think they look like one of the better teams in the country. Depth is not an issue. They have some great guard play, a trio of big men to choose from. How many teams can say that? They have 7, maybe 8 guys who could score 15 points on any given night. So there's going to be, it's like most regular seasons, there's going to be some ups and downs. As long as this team stays healthy, go in the NCAA tournament, they could certainly get there. But between the history of the program, which is a little less relevant, and the more relevant aspect of the nature of the NCAA tournament, we'll have to wait and see.
I'm dreaming big. Once again, and I've made this clear, and some guy in the chat, in the YouTube chat, called me an idiot, and that's fine. I think they're going to lose more than a handful worth of games. And I hope those are competitive losses. You just don't want to see blowouts. With that said, I think this is going to be an exciting season. This team, I mean, to do what they did to Old Dominion, they put it on them. Now, I hope they don't come out and lay an egg against Wisconsin. But right now, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm going to roll with that and let us dream big. Well, we are very pleased on Wildcat Country to be sponsored by Harrah's Auction Casino. Bear down, Wildcat fans, and get ready for your chance to win a brand new ride in 2024, because Harrah's Auction Casino is celebrating its 30th anniversary with a Win Your Wheels giveaway. Just play your favorite slots at Harrah's Auction using your Caesars Rewards card. The more you play, the more entries you'll receive. Then join us on the last Saturday of each month in 2024 to win up to $1,000 in free slot play or even a brand new ride. Win Your Wheels only at Harrah's Auction Casino. Play for all. Coming up next, our friend Ryan Hansen is back on Wildcat Country, and looking forward to talking to him.
When you're on the golf course and it's 100 degrees outside, you know what's great? The ice shaker, which keeps your water cold.
You heard the man. Get your custom Arizona Wildcats ice shaker now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, the basketball team 2-0 this year and traveling on the road this week to Wisconsin. They're the perfect guest to join us to break it all down. It is the color commentator on radio, Ryan Hansen, for the University of Arizona, joining us here in Wildcat Country. Ryan, glad to have you back on, second time on the show. I'm sure we're going to have you on plenty of times this year if you're up for it, but glad to have you. I got to say, this is going to sound very weird. Does Arizona have too much front court depth right now? How are you going to play all these guys the appropriate minutes?
It's a great question. And first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I love talking Wildcat basketball with you. I love talking Wildcat basketball anytime, but it is appropriate, right? We're getting heated up here. And when you look at that roster, to answer your question, you can never have enough depth for all the reasons that you know. And here's where it starts: fatigue, foul trouble, matchups, right? So those 3 things for me, when I think of depth, you have to prepare for things that are unknown. And that's where the fatigue and foul trouble and injuries, let's throw that in there as well. But then matchups become your issue. And I think what you're asking, or at least wanting to chat about, which is what I love, is the versatility of this front court. You really do have a quartet of, it's kind of like your toolbox. You've got all 4 pieces. You've got both types of screwdrivers. You've got a hammer, and you got some other type of a wrench of some kind in there. And I'm sure if we really dove into it, we could probably pick each guy and name them as one of the tools in the toolbox. But that's what's special, I think, about this front court is their versatility and the ability to have four guys. And I'm thinking of the primary four. Carter Bryant could probably slide in and play a little post if needed. But the primary four post guys do look pretty solid.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks again for joining us. Like Eric said, looking at the roster overall, it seems like you have 10 guys playing for a coach that likes to maybe play 8. And the depth certainly is a good problem to have, but do you see maybe once Arizona, the competition steps up a bit against Wisconsin and Duke, do you see Tommy maybe figuring out a way to tighten that roster a bit?
I could see some minutes restrictions, not maybe restrictions, but tightening up depending on, when you're playing Duke, let's say in 2 weeks, or even at Wisconsin on the road, how do guys respond? And so minutes could be pulled back. You're going to see Jaden Bradley probably on the floor handling the basketball for as many minutes as you need in both of those games in particular. Started asking myself, is Tommy Lloyd happy and used to an 8-man rotation because that's his philosophy? Or was he an 8-man rotation at Arizona because those were the 8 guys he trusted the most? And he never really ended up trusting Paulius Morauskas or Philip Borovichinen, who from the outside looked like they had talent, looked like they had ability. So which is it? Is it Tommy's comfort level with only 8? Or is it Tommy's comfort level with the 8? And so this year, that's the question. Is he comfortable with the 10 that he has? Or as the games get tougher, is it, hey, it's not that I love an 8-man rotation. It's I love these 8. These 8 guys give us the best chance to win and the best chance to develop over the course of the season, I think, is the bigger question that maybe why in this non-conference I would advocate for 10 guys playing through the majority of the non-conference.
Yeah, it's a good question and something I'm sure we'll have answered over the next couple of weeks. There's not enough good things to say about Caleb Love, but one of the things that I really enjoy about him is that he could have come to Arizona and just been content to play his game, not really learn anything else. But I really feel like he's doing everything he can to keep getting better, to dive for loose balls, play tougher defense. He really seems like he's bought into the system and is really intent on not just kind of winging it or I guess coasting and just being a top guy, but really improving his game day in and day out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. When you look at what he's doing defensively, right, he's trying to raise his level, and it's going to have to be raised if he's going to be alongside Jaden and KJ for a majority of the minutes because he'll become the weak link. So he will get picked on. So we're going to see him kind of on an island to a certain degree because who's going to try to challenge Jaden and KJ? I think many will try, but I don't think many will succeed in that mano-a-mano matchup. I'm also happy to see Caleb's taking care of the basketball. You and I've talked in the past for him. This year is a year of efficiency for him. I think productivity was his number one thing in his younger years. Now it's about efficiency. He really needs to, and he may not get there. But if he wants to play at the next level, and maybe it is the NBA, he needs to be a 50, 40, 80 guy, maybe 50, 40, 90 guy. And he's never been able to get there. He's been at 44, 45, 46. He's from the field. He's been, 33, 36. Can he get to 38 or 40 at the 3-point level? If he could turn himself into a 50, 40, 90 guy, now he looks like an NBA player. That might be too lofty of a jump. But I think for me, when I look at his 5th year this year, it's efficiency. That's what he's got to shoot for.
What do you make of Anthony Delorso? He's shooting, 23.5% thus far. And this is a guy that was known for being a sharpshooter. Comes in, the guy, let's just say he hasn't played great, even though the rest of the team is fired in the first 2 games. What are your thoughts on watching him? And do you expect good things from him as the 6th man of sorts off the bench?
I started to look at, and I'll extrapolate out to another player, not to get into him as well. But when you look at Del Orso's number of field goal attempts that he took last year and the year before at Campbell as the leading scorer, he was asked to take 15, 16 shots a game. When you look at Trey Townsend, leading scorer for Oakland, he was asked to take 15, 16 shots a game. When you look at Caleb Love, last year, he took 15, 16 shots a game. That's 45 to 48 shots. If those guys play like they're used to playing, like they have been playing, amongst three guys. Arizona averaged about 67 shots a game last year. That's not enough shots, in other words, for everybody else. So there's going to have to be some compromise. There's going to have to be some evolution of players and their mentality. And it starts with Del Orso off the bench in that way. Trey Townsend in the starting lineup's going to have to figure out how he can be effective with less shots. And Del Orso's going to have to work through that himself, that he's going to have to become more efficient. He can't work through shooting slumps because he knows he's going to get 15 shots up in the game. He's got to be effective with 5 or 6 shots. He's not gun shy. He's exceptionally confident in his game. And so I like that about him. I like that he is determined and decisive with the basketball, but he's got to also recognize when it's his time, how many shots is too many shots if you go 1 for 9 in your first game. At what point does he say to himself, tonight's not the night, I'm 1 for 5. I need to defer and find other ways to impact the game. So that's where I think will be fun to watch how Del Orso and Trey Townsend find ways to be impactful without shooting 15 shots a game.
And that's fair. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, where is the weakness on this team? I mean, they've dropped 200 points basically in the first 2 games. What are you most concerned about heading into the big competition the next 2 Fridays?
Not concerned necessarily, but I need a larger sample size as it relates to outside shooting. I need to see, can we consistently be a good 3-point shooting team? Can the rotations get to a point where we can still have great offense when you may not have the offensive big weapons on the floor per se? And you've seen some of those rotations with Carter and Anthony on the floor at the same time, with KJ Lewis at the point, and you've got Tobe maybe on the floor. And so you've got guys that aren't naturally offensively gifted in Arizona's system yet, haven't produced just yet. Can they do that against high-level competition? So that would be, a weakness. Can we score enough from the perimeter? Can we score when those rotations change? I want to see how we respond to high-level athleticism and guards and bigs that can drive it, that can get to the rim. Will we have enough rim protection? I think we have enough girth. That's a word that's been thrown out. Size. I think we've got the size. Do we have the rim protection against elite level athletes and bigs that can get to the rim? And that's a sample size thought for me, not necessarily a concern.
Looking at Tobe Awaka and his big game against Old Dominion, it seems like I don't know, there's some sort of secret sauce the Tommy Lloyd staff has in terms of developing big guys. We saw it with Christian Koloko and Umar Ballo, and now Awaka looks like he's off to a great start as well. What are your thoughts? What do you think is the reason why big guys have been able to flourish under Tommy Lloyd and his staff?
He cares about bigs. He understands bigs. He allows them to grow, right? The pressures of college basketball, of producing right away as freshmen, of coming in as a transfer and being a big time transfer productivity wise right away. I think he allows those guys space to make mistakes, space to grow. And I think he just understands how to coach bigs in and around the basket, be it footwork, be it getting an advantage early before you catch the ball, how to carve out space, how to use your body. I think Tommy's exceptionally gifted in that way, as from a player development standpoint. And that is one guy in Tobe that I'm excited to watch over time. And he's not just a 1-year guy, right? We could have him a couple of years. What could he become? And that's not a knock on what he is now. It's just, what he's done over the course of the majority of his career has not been offensively weighted. It's been on the effort, the rebounding, and the defensive end. So where he can become offensively for Arizona is a really big upside and exciting part, I think, for what we saw, especially against Old Dominion. I mean, I'm sitting there with Brian, and it was like Brian just pushed play on a recording that said, another rebound by Tobe Awaka, another rebound by, it was everything on the rim was his in that game. Will that translate against Duke, right? A lot more height, a lot more size. I think it will because he did it at Tennessee. So it's exciting the amount of space that he commands and the offense that he put up on the scoring side of things too.
100% agree. Looking forward to this game at Wisconsin. Arizona goes from two pretty easy home games to a tough team on the road, difficult place to play. Obviously, there's the history with Wisconsin, but no one who was played in those tournament games is part of this team. Some of the guys played them last year. What's the biggest challenge going into this game? Is it Wisconsin's got some shooters, obviously playing on the road, and a true road game is always difficult. What do you think?
I think there's multiple issues, right? I think you start with the road. How is Arizona's young guys or new players going to respond as the villain in a big game environment? We know Tobe's played in big game environments. Trey Townsend's played in big game environments, so I feel pretty good about that question mark. Wisconsin is well coached. Unlike the first two games that Arizona has faced brand new head coaches, far more new players to that system than had ever played there before. I think Canisius at one point went 8 or 9 guys deep before they actually put out a guy who wore a Canisius uniform before that night. So now you've got Max Klesmit, you've got Stephen Crowell, you've got some continuity with Wisconsin that knows Greg Gard's system. And the way he coaches is hard-nosed, lots of screens, lots of patience on the offensive end. So I think our defense is going to get tested. It's not Wisconsin of Bo Ryan and maybe even Dick Bennett, where they're going to use the entire shot clock. So it's not 4 corners, let's grind you down. However, I believe it's going to be more deliberate. They're going to try to force Arizona to have to play defense for long sequences. Can Arizona maintain the effort, energy, and level of defensive intensity that it wants to be and purports to be this year to be able to be successful at Wisconsin? Arizona is going to be tested on that end, I think, more so than on the offensive end for the Wildcats.
All right, so 2 more questions for you. First of all, I've asked this of Muehlbach a few weeks ago when he was on. Arizona's schedule is really difficult. What in your, just in the conference schedule and obviously the non-conference with Duke coming up, potentially a matchup with Gonzaga in the Bahamas. It's just not easy, and then it's just brutal. What is a reasonable expectation for a seed come March?
It's a great question. Reasonable expectation for me is probably somewhere in the 4 and 5 range.
Okay.
And how Arizona plays against, and I think of it this way. If you're in the Big 12 and you take care of business, relatively speaking, right? You win the majority of your home games. The old formula in the Pac-10, right, was hold serve at home, undefeated at home, split your road games. You're probably going to be in the top 2 or 3 spots of the conference. That might be asking a lot in this conference. But when I look at what is widely accepted as teams rated 6 through whatever, how many ever 16 teams in the Big 12. When you look at that listing and you say to yourself, okay, can you hold serve against Oklahoma State and TCU? Can you take care of business against Cincinnati and West Virginia and Central Florida? If you take care of business against those guys, you're Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, Texas Tech on the road, right? You can stand to lose some of those games, if not many of those games. So that's where you could be a 6 seed if you don't take care of that kind of bottom third of the Big 12, which is going to be murderer's row. And by the way, I don't want to give credit to any time to the team up north. The team up north played a little bit better against Gonzaga, showed a little bit of fight. Good for the conference. I'm usually not a conference guy as it relates to the school up north, but in this case, that was good for the conference for them to not lay a complete egg up in Spokane. So how do you play against ASU in those 2 games? You could fall to a 6, but if you win a couple more of those, you beat Houston, you beat, Iowa State, now you could creep into a 3 seed. So I think the range could be anywhere from a 2 to a 6.
Okay.
And to be honest, I almost don't care. Because I think we're going to be so battle tested come March that the 6 and the 2 won't matter for us. It still will come down to, at that moment, are you hot? Are you healthy? Does the ball bounce your way? And how are the matchups? But I believe we'll be battle tested one way or the other.
Yeah, let me sneak in a real quick final question for you along those lines, Ryan. The last time we talked to you was right before Arizona played Clemson in the Sweet 16, and we don't have to talk about that game, but I do think that I've mentioned this many times since then. I think Clemson was probably the best team Arizona had played in a couple months to that point, even though it was a game Arizona should have won. That's not going to be an issue this time around. And I think that them getting beat up a little bit even toward the end of the season, as long as they stay healthy, is not such a bad thing going into March. What do you think?
First of all, I couldn't agree with you more that was clearly the best team we had played, maybe the entire Pac-12 conference schedule, that Clemson was the best team. And I will back up your point. Should have won. Should have won. I don't want to belabor that point.
They shot horribly and still almost found a way to win.
And still we're within a possession, right? And that's, I guess, back to my 3-point shooting. Like, I got to see it over time. Can you do that? Because we know that's been Arizona's bugaboo, and that's almost often everybody's bugaboo come NCAA tournament time if you have that really horrible night shooting. But to your point, what does Arizona finish the 2 Saturdays before the Big 12 tournament? At Iowa State, at Kansas. Are you kidding? Like, those 2 games could be the most difficult games in March or February, March. Like, you could play in the NCAA tournament and not play a tougher game than at Iowa State and at Kansas.
And they could play
the Final Four.
And they could end up playing both teams twice down the stretch if you count the Big 12 tournament.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you could go to the Final Four and not play a tougher game than the last 2 games on the road in your conference season, or even when you square off against Iowa State at home, kind of in that same run. So that is that illuminates what you're talking about in regards to being battle tested. Now, you still got to win your fair share of games. Just because you play tough games doesn't mean you're better for it. Just because you play tough games and if you lose them all, well, then you're in trouble. So you got to win enough games. You got to prove yourself. You got to improve and learn from those tough games. And so it's not all just, well, the schedule's shaping up great. It's a really tough schedule. We'll just chalk up Arizona in the NCAA tournament. We all know better than that. Shane, you and I have PTSD that Eric, I think you do too.
Every Wildcat fan that's at 30 or over does.
Yeah. If you are a real Wildcat fan, you have PTSD because that means you've lived through too many times. And I was watching something, and not to divert here, but something just talking about when Sean Miller was the coach, and by golly, we were very close to getting to the promised land multiple times. And I will just say the recent record in the Elite Eight is just sad. The number of losses that we've had. It is time to get over the hump, right? 5. And
5 since 2001.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
Had enough.
I think that was a great way to say it, Ryan. It's PTSD. And I think our fans are in for it this year. They're used to just coasting through the Pac-12 and a good year. Yeah. 16-4 or 15-5. You're not going to see that this year. And I think a lot of people, some guy in our YouTube chat called me an idiot last week. Arizona's going to lose games this year. We know that.
Absolutely.
People need to get used to it. All right.
You could have legitimately, Eric, without playing poorly, 3 losses in the non-conference and still feel great about your non-conference slate. I mean, let's just say you lose to Duke, you lose to Gonzaga in the championship game. Maybe do you drop one other? It probably shouldn't, right? But no. I mean, what happens this Friday? Let's just say you go up there, you play well, it's cold. They hit a shot at the buzzer. So you lose to Wisconsin, Duke, and Gonzaga in the championship game, and they're all close, and Arizona plays well. Are you really that disappointed? It doesn't probably hurt your seeding as long as you hold serve. So to your point, and then you lose 6 games in the Big 12, 7 games. You could be a 9-loss team going into the NCAA tournament. Last time Arizona was a 9-loss team that I can recall, there might have been one in there somewhere, but there was a 9-loss team in 1997 that did fairly well.
And they tied, that team tied for 4th in the Pac-10 that year, and they still got a 4 seed, won the whole thing.
Got swept at Cal Stanford that weekend.
Right.
Last
there was no conference tournament, so those were our last 2 regular season games.
That was it, right? We played at the Cal Palace against Cal. There was a fight in the locker room after the game because the coach that had the scout was mad at the scout team, so he wanted to fight the scout team about how he didn't think they prepared us well enough for Cal. You lose. Pete Sauer hits a jumper on the baseline, 8-foot jumper, short corner to lose to Stanford. PTSD, Shane. I feel like I'm laying on the couch with my shrink talking about all my nightmares.
That's all this is a therapy session every single week.
That's why we do this show, Ryan. It's a therapy session. Yeah. Now,
I love it.
For people that want to travel to some of these games in the Big 12, Bon Voyage Travel might be a pretty good asset. Tell us what you can offer some of our listeners.
You bet. You're a little late to the game if you want to go to the Battle for Atlantis. We had a package. We actually were selling seats on the team charter too. So we had a pretty good deal there for that one. But if you want to travel, and it's basketball show, so for sure basketball, but Bon Voyage Travel, we sell vacations. So after the season's over, if you want to go on a vacation, you need to call Bon Voyage Travel, or the best place to start is our website, bvtravel.com.
And there you have it. Ryan, so great to catch up with you. What a fun, discussion. Now you got Shane triggered with PTSD. I don't even know how the predictions are going to go in the next segment. Thank you so much for coming on with us, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again here soon.
Thanks, guys. Bear down.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Shane, that was a fun one. Ryan doesn't hold back, and I love it. We love those kind of guests.
No, it was great. A lot of really good in-depth information beyond surface level. And then, after we were done recording, Ryan talked to us about how he's been a season ticket holder for football for decades, and we talked about some of the games way back in the 80s. The streak against ASU and some other games. So we'll have to have him on to talk football at some point. But that was a fun conversation, and we'll definitely have him on to talk hoops again soon.
I very much enjoyed it as well, and we're glad as always to bring him on. Let's talk football picks. And we'll have a basketball pick in here too. Don't worry. Shane, you gained one on me last week. You're down 3 on the year in our point system, 54 to 51. Right. Give me your upset special this week.
Well, Vanderbilt let me down last week, but I really wanted to go with Pitt as a 10-point home underdog versus Clemson, but that one just seems a little too obvious. Maybe like it's just dangling out there and a little too fishy. So I passed on that one, which I'll probably regret. But instead, I'm going to go with West Virginia as a 2.5-point home underdog versus Baylor. Obviously, the Mountaineers aren't as good as I thought they were going to be going into the season. They won 2 straight games on the road. Baylor gives up a lot of points, so I'm going to take West Virginia to win outright.
Good. I was looking at that one. I'm going to go Air Force at home against Oregon State. They won their first game last week. They're a 4-point underdog, and Oregon State has gone in the tank. I think they've lost like 4 or 5 in a row and just not even competitive. They lost, I believe it was to San Jose State last week. Yeah, and they
San
lost
Jose
by double
State
digits.
is bowl eligible. Yeah, it just feels like another kick in the what there, but.
So I'm going Air Force at home over Oregon State to get their second win of the year. How about Utah at Colorado? Colorado is a 10-point favorite. Colorado, if they win out, Shane, they're in the Big 12 championship game, which is wild to think about.
Brutal home loss for Utah and not without controversy. What do you think about that holding call?
I didn't love it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, cool that BYU was able to go down and capitalize, but I did not love that call whatsoever.
I think that the big sticking point for Utah fans was it looked like that they had won, and then, oh, by the way, there's a flag on the field. We didn't learn about it until after the celebration, so I think that made it sting more. But I like Utah to cover in this one. I think they've righted the ship a bit. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I think Colorado probably wins, but I think 10 points is too many.
I agree with you. I'm going Utah as well. This quarterback, they benched Wilson. They got this other kid who played pretty well last week. I think they keep this within a touchdown. Missouri is going on the road at South Carolina. Both are ranked. South Carolina has been on fire of late, 3 straight wins by 3 touchdowns or more, and they are 11.5-point favorites against Mizzou. Which way do you lean?
Give me South Carolina with the points. Missouri, I think they're a pretender this year. They had the rally to beat a bad Oklahoma team at home. That was a crazy ending to that game.
That was a crazy ending. You bet.
Yeah. Look, I mean, roller coaster for both teams, but ultimately a couple of, I think, average teams, at least in the SEC. South Carolina's rolling right now, like you said, with wins over Texas A&M and at Vanderbilt. I like the Gamecocks by 2 touchdowns.
I like the Gamecocks by 3 touchdowns, and that they cover this one as well. This one, I almost shouldn't have thrown it in there because it seems too easy, but it was a couple of ranked teams. All right, this is a big one. Tennessee at Georgia. Tennessee is in the top 10. Georgia is also in the top 10. And Georgia is giving, we're going to say 8.5 points. Which way do you lean on this one?
I'm going to take Georgia to bounce back. I think it seems like a lot of points to give, but at home, I think Bulldogs find a way to cover. Look, they're going to be desperate. They know one more loss might keep them out of the CFP altogether, which is kind of crazy to think about. There's going to be a lot of 2 to 3 loss teams in the SEC down the stretch, and Georgia could get lost in the shuffle if they lose a game like this. So I'm going to take Georgia with the points.
Yeah, it's crazy that you and I are agreeing on every pick, but I think Georgia wins this game. I think they have to bounce back here. They're done in the college football playoff. If they lose, they're not getting in with 3 losses.
Yeah.
That was a pretty embarrassing performance against Ole Miss last week. I think they bounce back and win this game. And Tennessee's defense has been great. They haven't given up 20 points all year. But I think Georgia is the first team to score 20 on them. Lower scoring game. I like the under, so I'm giving that one out. Also, let's talk about a game that is, I'd like the over in this game. Kansas at BYU. BYU is a 3-point favorite. The over is 55.5, and the last 6 Kansas games have gone over 56 total points. I'll give you another one. BYU's played 4 home games this year, including against Arizona. They've scored 38 in 2 of them and 41 in the other 2. So I love the over here. I think BYU wins this game by a touchdown. I think they cover it, even against a Kansas team that's pretty pesky right now.
It's a super interesting line, isn't it? Because it is. You got an undefeated team as a 3-point home favorite against a 4-6 team, or 3-6 team. Kansas and BYU have sort of taken opposite paths. Like you said, BYU keeps finding ways to rally and win games late, and KU has done completely the opposite. I picked UCF a few weeks ago to end BYU's undefeated run, and that was not a good pick by me. I'm going to very stupidly double down, and I'm going to pick Kansas to go in there and end it. I think this is one of those lines that Vegas may be trying to tell us something. I think, and I'll probably, which means BYU will probably end up winning by 3 touchdowns, but I'm going to take Kansas to get it done and BYU's undefeated streak.
BYU at ASU next week. You can make I know what you're going to pick there. Let's talk about ASU for a second. They're on the road at Kansas State. Kansas State giving 8.5. We don't know if Cam Scadaboo's going to play. I'm going to assume that he will in a big game like this. Sun Devils, listen, they have a chance to win 8-9 games, and almost supersede Arizona from last year, even though they won't finish as high because they're not beating the quality opponents that the Wildcats did last year, with the ranked teams. 8.5 points for Kansas State. I like the Wildcats to win this game by 2 touchdowns. So I am going to take them to cover the line. How about you?
Yeah, I think while Arizona has definitely played below its talent level this year, ASU has done the opposite. They continue to play above it. They found a way to beat UCF without Cam Scadaboo. Like I said, he's questionable this week. I think it's a game K-State probably wins, but as competitive as ASU has been week in and week out, excited from that game against Cincinnati when Sam Levitt didn't start, I'm not going to take K-State to cover. I think ASU keeps it close.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. All right, Shane. Here we go. We're going to start with football. Arizona's a 1-point favorite at home against Houston. I'm going to give you the first word on this one.
I'll say it again, Eric. Until proven otherwise, I will not and cannot pick Arizona to win a football game. I know they're coming off a bye. Health isn't the biggest problem on this team, even though it is a problem. This will be a matchup of the 2 worst offenses in the Big 12 in terms of points per game. Houston's number 2 in the conference in yards allowed. The good news, I guess, for Arizona is that Utah is number 1 in that category, and they beat Utah. Houston's quarterback, Donovan Smith, is not good. He's thrown twice as many picks as touchdown passes this year. I have faith that Arizona can somehow make him look like a Heisman candidate at times on Friday. I think this will be one of the ugliest games in Arizona Stadium in recent memory. Maybe a competitive game, but not a pretty one. I'm going to take Houston 19-13.
Wow. Okay, you're going low scoring. I'm going, I thought about it all week. I'm thinking Arizona's going to win this game and turn things around. And then I looked at what Houston has done lately, Shane, and they've won 3 of 4. Meanwhile, Arizona's lost 5 straight. I know, they beat Kansas State and Utah at home. They also beat TCU on the road. That was a great home win on a Friday night. I think they go into Arizona Stadium. I think they win this game. Houston 24, Arizona 17. And I'm going to be pretty upset on the drive home, but that's just...
You're used to it.
I may be... Listen, I've wanted to support Brent Brennan. I think he's a great guy. Yeah. But if they lose this game...
We got to see something. Yeah, I agree with you.
Got to show me something.
Bad.
This is... I was at dinner with a former player from the Mike Stoops era the other night. Oh. And I was talking to him about how they would peak in certain seasons and then just tank. And, he admittedly doesn't pay as much attention anymore to Arizona football. But he's like, man, I just see the scores. What the heck's going on? Is it coaching? And I said, injuries have been a part of it, but coaching, as much as I've tried to defend it, and I'll own it.
This isn't 2016 where the roster was completely decimated and you had to go have a wide receiver play running back. This isn't that. There've been injuries, but you still got a lot of talent on this team. You got a lot of good individual players, and so I understand the losses, but the lack of competitiveness is just inexcusable.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's talk Arizona, Wisconsin basketball. Wildcats going up to Madison. I don't know if the Badgers are all that great. I'm sold on Arizona. I'm going to make the first pick here, Shane, then I'll leave it to you. I think this is a double-digit win for Arizona. I'll say Wildcats by 12.
Okay. Well, like Arizona, Wisconsin's beaten up on an inferior competition to this point. They have some great shooters. Their three leading scorers are all, at this point, are all fantastic from three-point range, so keeping them in check is going to be important, especially early in the game when the crowd's going to be in it at full throat. Just about all of Arizona's players have played and won in these kinds of environments, including Caleb Love, who's beaten Duke and Cameron Indoor with two different teams, which I don't know how many players have done that in the last 30-some-odd years. Without seeing more from both teams to this point, I think the difference is going to be Arizona's size and depth. Arizona, obviously, like we talked about, they're not short on big men who can score and be disruptive on defense. And Arizona's going to have the best player on the court in Caleb Love, who I really enjoy watching him working to improve every single game and instead of just resting on his laurels. So it's always tough to win on the road, especially early in the year where you're still kind of forming an identity as a team and the rotation's still shaking out like it is. But I'm going to take Arizona to win. Like I said, in politics, if you hate both presidential candidates, you're considered a double hater. I'm not going to be a double hater. I'm not going to pick against the football and the men's basketball team. Okay. I'm going to take Arizona to win. I'm going to take them to win by 3. Okay. I certainly hope it won't be that close, but it's just blowout road wins against teams as good as Wisconsin, ranked or not. They're just hard to come by. So I'm going to take Arizona to win, but I think it's going to be more of a nail biter than we'd like.
Hopefully we have a couple of wins to talk about here next week. The women's basketball team will start talking about them as well as their season gets ramped up going on in the Big 12. But let's hope that we see some progress from the football team and just get a win. Just get out of Madison with a win. And I think you and I can both agree.
And any road win's a good win. Yeah. And by the way, I know for Arizona football, we count the 2 points if we call those games right. Are we doing 2 points for Arizona basketball too?
With the spread. Yep. Good. With the spread.
Okay. So you have them winning by 12. I have them winning by 3. The spread's probably going to be somewhere in between that, you would think.
Yep. I would think so. Yeah. Probably somewhere I'd say 6.5, somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. So we got a little bit of difference there.
So we shall see. One of us will cover and one of us, we'll find out. But nonetheless, great show, Shane. As always, appreciate Ryan Hansen for joining us. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.